Thanks, Paul. I'm going to start with you since you're the freshest. The point that that I really, my questions are going to lean toward volume here, because the theme really that keeps coming up here is how do we get the volume? How do we handle volume? The military applications are fascinating to me. Everything from unmanned aerial vehicles, AeroVironment is here represented on the show floor, and that's been a key play of theirs. But everything from giant machines with hub motors to little vehicles that are unmanned that can get in and out quietly with no heat signature, et cetera. There are lots of different applications for the military. I want to come back to the dual use theme. What's clear to me is that one of your jobs, and I know you've played this as well with HTUF, the Hybrid Utility Truck Forum, Users Truck Forum, excuse me, is to pull together standards, as it were, that many different platforms can utilize. Could you say a little bit more about that, and how can the military drive some true volume here?
Okay, I think that's a great question. I get to put a little plug in for the organization I lead up, because just what you said in terms of the dual use. I head up an organization within TARDEC called the National Automotive Center. We are chartered by the Secretary of the Army, and really we are the Department of Defense's focal point to make the connections to industry, to academia, to other government agencies and other services, and accelerate the infusion of commercially viable technologies in our military land warfare systems. So with that context, then I started talking about some numbers, and I'll just talk about it from an Army perspective. You mentioned the Hybrid Truck Users Forum. We started that about 9 years ago, and the whole point was to be able to connect commercial fleets to military fleets. If you start to take a look at the user, take a look at the user across the board. The user is going to tell you what they want. 9 years ago on the hybrid side, the users, the fleet owners on the commercial side, we're here because we think great things about hybrids, about full hybrid electric vehicles. But we're here because we've got issues on maintainability, reliability, issues in terms of do we have to change our whole maintenance structure, issues are on safety. So what we did is we said we have the same issues from a military standpoint. We have a few different things that we look at in terms of that realm. We start looking at silent watch capability. Then all of a sudden, I would say silent watch capability, and an industry partner would say, well, when I've got a utility truck, because one of the very first groups, and you talked about it in terms of on the utility side, one of the very first groups we got together to do common specifications was the utilities in terms of the bucket trucks or the cherry pickers that we see. When they said, hey, silent watch for you, we'd like to have silent watch when we're working on the lines. So, it starts to see that there's a really nice convergence between what we have in the military and what we have from a commercial fleet perspective. Well, let's get back to the numbers. So if we sit here and we say we've got about 200,000 in the Army, 200,000 non-tactical vehicles. Well, why couldn't we speed up and have all 200,000 of those non-tactical vehicles that goes all the way from ultralights up to heavy platforms? Why couldn't we speed that up and be the first buyers and have those vehicles on our bases? Just think about this. It almost becomes a motherhood and apple pie statement when it comes to homeland security or homeland defense. Now you start seeing that, hey, I've got vehicles on bases that are advanced propulsion vehicles. Again, electric, extended range electric, fuel cell electric, however you define them in whatever mix, but across the board. Now all of a sudden you start saying, well, if I can start to look at installation, and that's why we have this Advanced Vehicle and Power Initiative, and that is to look at it not only from an Army perspective, from a DoD perspective, and be leaders to be able to go out and say, these are the issues that we face in the non-tactical world. So how does that compare to the commercial industry so we can be best partners from that? And then take it the next step. If you've got significant investments, what we've seen through the Hybrid Truck Users Forum, we went and we paid to hybridize 24 bucket trucks that have over 1 million miles on them, a availability rate, we talk a lot about that in the military, availability rate of greater than 99%. You know where some of those initial failures have been. And you look at fuel economy increases or fuel efficiency increases of anywhere from 10 to 54%. Over 1 million miles, over 99% available. And the fact is that you're getting a 10 to 54% increase in fuel efficiency. All of a sudden you start saying, well, who's investing there? Who are the industry partners that are playing? Those are the same industry partners that'll play on the commercial side that are going to be involved on the military side. So now you take this Advanced Vehicle and Power Initiative, vehicle to grid on bases, plugging in, and then you start taking a look at what we have to do in terms of the tactical situation. How do we take advantage of the technologies in the tactical world? So I'm glad you started off with me, because I'm really pumped up, very passionate. We have an entire organization, I'd say the Army and DOD, when it comes to energy security. I mean, we're passionate about it, and we've got a great opportunity to put dollars in, to have sites that we can have some of these great experimentation being done, and to really be able to help push the technology forward that we really need from this nation to be secure here in the U.S. as well as overseas.
And how much inertia are you going to run into in that process?
How much?
Inertia. I mean, the military is a big organization.
No, I think you know, if you would have said this 9 years ago, there would have been, you know, I mean, well, let me step back and say this. We have a job to do. I mean, there's no doubt. And we have a job to do. We have current fleets that we have to take care of. We also have to take a look at the future. But I would say that in all of the folks that I've spoken to from a Department of Defense standpoint, senior leadership, both in defense, at all of the services within the Army, and actually with our brothers and sisters from, you know, energy or transportation or EPA, you're not running into resistance. What you are is you're saying, and I'll end with this, because this is very, very important. We used to sit there and you think when we buy fuel, in some cases we'd sit there and maybe the fuel cost now for us is about $4 a gallon. If you look at it, we have to think about fully burdened cost of fuel. So fully burdened cost of fuel, you now have to start taking into account, what if you have to helicopter that fuel in? Well, it could be $600 a gallon. So now you got to really start thinking about that. And so from a Department of Defense standpoint, when you look at fully burdened cost of fuel, all of a sudden it's boom, what do we have to do in the military to make a difference over here? What do we have to do to reduce the logistics? A lot of people like to call it tail. I like to call it the logistics muscle. I mean, what do we have to do there? So I think literally you're seeing that everybody is supportive. You have to do this, but within the context of supporting the current war effort, as well as looking at the future, and as well as taking full advantage of the investments that are being done already by industry, other academic partners, other government partners and academia. So I think you're going to see, if it was anybody from here, from a DOD perspective, you would have that inertia is not there. I mean, everybody's passionate, everybody's pumped up to make something happen for us.
Thanks,
and
Paul.
for the nation.